Hey, Internet, George Berger here. As you can possibly guess, I now have the cables to connect the capture box to my PC. Playing random MMOs on Android badly is certainly fun and educational, but what I really had kind of set out to do a couple weeks ago was to play Half-Life 2 again for the first time in many a year, um, which I can now do. So, yay! Uh, and you're welcome to follow along for the ride. Before I get started, I just want to talk about the game itself a little bit. If you weren't, it came out in 2004, I think it was. If you weren't around back then, or you weren't um, playing video games back then, you probably don't really realize how big of a deal it was. Um, Half-Life 1 wasn't really hugely successful. It wasn't a big mimetic thing just on its own. But Half-Life 2 was one of the, if not the, at the time, most hotly anticipated PC video games. And this wasn't so much, unfortunately, on its own merits, as much as because, in addition to continuing the Half-Life story, Half-Life 2 is really, in large part, a technology demonstrator for the Source engine. It was the first game that used the Source engine, and a lot of Valve's marketing stuff wasn't even about the game. It was all, look at the neat things our next generation engine can do. If you went to gaming websites at the time, in 2003 when they were still teasing the game, or early 2004, it was all, high definition lighting and realistic physics and destructible environments was one of the big promises, and there was a bunch of other stuff as well. And people were anticipating the game less, I think, on its own merits than just on the fact that they thought it was going to be, metaphorically speaking, a game changer. And it was, in a lot of ways. I bought the game the first week it came out. I was living in the ghetto at the time. I had only dial-up internet. And, walked to the store 2 or 3 miles each way, bought the physical copy, installed it, played it. And then, according to Steam, I last played it in 2010, late 2010, so 8 years ago. I have fond memories of Half-Life 2. Or I say I have fond memories of Half-Life 2. Truth be told, I have very few memories of Half-Life 2. I just sort of recall that I like it. But I don't really remember why exactly. I would sort of call it one of my favorite games. I don't think it's my favorite game, but it's one of my favorites. And that is not to say that it doesn't have problems, because it does. It has a lot of problems. And I hope to go into some of those. So before I get started here, The plan is to go through 1 or 2 chapters per video. Today, I'm going to try to get through the first 2 chapters because they're short. Point Insertion and Red Letter Day, I think it is. So, yeah. I should also point out, when I initially played Half-Life 2 for the first time, I'd never played Half-Life 1. And so it was a very surreal experience, because the game does a terrible job of filling you in on the backstory. If you don't know what's going on, you'll be very, very confused. Obviously now I'm older and wiser, but it was still kind of a trip. So, without further ado, let's fire up Half-Life 2.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply you have been sleeping on the job. No one is more deserving of a rest, and all the effort in the world would have gone to waste until... well, let's just say your hour has come again. The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
So that's very creepy and confusing if you've never seen the first game. Those are all flashbacks to Half-Life, and kind of meaningless otherwise. You just find yourself thrown on what looks like a kind of beat up New York City subway train, and the game is scrolling credits like a movie.
End of the line.
Down at the bottom of the screen there. This is a normal thing now in video games, but it wasn't then. And we'll get to that in a minute. But there is possibly a good reason for that.
In the citadel so thoughtfully provided by our benefactors, I've been proud to call City 17 my home. And so, whether you are here to stay or passing through on your way to parts unknown, welcome to City 17. It's safer here.
Lies. All lies. And then if you go right here, this part I do remember, that's a Vortigaunt. And if you've played the first game, you know this. If you don't, though, seeing this weird, very alien janitor is kind of your first clue, really, that all is not right with this world.
Welcome.
Or all is not
Welcome to City 17.
as we know it.
You have chosen or been chosen to relocate to one of our finest remaining urban centers.
And here's the first of many
So much of City
scripted events you will see.
I elected to establish my administration here in the citadel so
Prompted by
thoughtfully
your
provided by our benefactors.
arrival.
The only ones on that train?
I've been proud to call City 17 my home. And so, whether you are here to stay or passing through on your way
Overwatch stopped
to
our
parts
train in the
unknown,
woods and took my husband for questioning.
to City
They
17.
said he'd be on the next train.
It's safer here.
I'm not sure when that was. They're being nice, though, letting me wait for him.
Oh, sweetie. And yes, as I recall, you can get a soda. Not that it does you a whole lot of good.
Welcome.
Yeah. Still,
Welcome to City 17.
in 2004, that was a neat demonstration of physics. How the times have changed.
I thought so much of City 17 that I elected to establish my administration here.
Dr. Breen again? I was hoping I'd seen the last of him in City 14. I wouldn't say that too loud. This is his base of operations.
And so, whether you are here to stay or passing through on your way to parts unknown, welcome to City 17. It's safer here.
Where are you taking me? These?
And then she will stand there forever if you don't move far enough. To about here, I think.
Welcome.
Yep.
Welcome to City 17.
Of course, just standing around won't advance the plot, such as it is.
To one of our finest remaining urban centers. I thought so much of City 17.
Looks like
that
I'm
I
going to
elected
Nova Prospect.
establish my administration.
Okay, maybe not.
In the citadel so thoughtfully provided by our benefactors. I've been proud to call City 17 my home.
Generally speaking, when someone addresses you as citizen,
You are here to stay or
what is about to follow is not going to be pleasant.
parts unknown?
This must be a mistake. I got a standard relocation coupon just like everybody else.
Yeah, that's not ominous.
Recalibrate socio scan.
What if I don't want to? Alright, 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 I'm getting...
Local civil protection teams report that.
About that beer I owed you. It's me, Gordon, Barney from Black Mesa. Hey, sorry for the scare. I had to put on a show for the cameras. I've been working undercover with civil protection. I can't take too long or they'll get suspicious. I'm way behind on my beating quota.
Yes, Barney, what is it? I'm in the middle of a critical test.
Sorry, Doc, but look who's here.
Great Scott! Gordon Freeman! I expected more warning.
Yeah, you and me both, Doc. He was about to board the express to Nova Prospect.
Well, Barney, what do you intend?
I'm thinking.
Alex is around here somewhere. She would have a better idea how to get him here.
Oh, as long as he stays away from checkpoints, we should be okay. Listen, I gotta go, Doc. We're taking enough chances as it is.
Very well. And, Gordon, good to see you.
Okay, Gordon. You're gonna have to make your own way to Dr. Kleiner's lab. Oh, man, that's what I was afraid of. Get in here, Gordon, before you blow my cover.
Now riddle me
There's
this,
no
folks.
time to waste here, Gordon. Get a
How
move
old does
on.
Barney look here? How old would you say he is? It's not a rhetorical question.
Will you get going?
It'll become important later.
Pile up some stuff to get through that window and keep going till you're in the plaza. I'll meet up with you later.
Pile up stuff, get to the plaza, meet up with Barney later. How convenient that someone left a bunch of crates laying around. It's like escaping from civil protection through open windows is a normal thing in this world. For all I know, it is. Oops, did I do that? So, yeah. Again, this was exciting physics in 2004. you'll probably see a lot of the loading screen. My computer is a potato. It's just barely powerful enough to play the game. It's not nearly powerful enough to play the game and record it or stream it itself, which is why I needed some capture hardware, which a lovely Twitter follower thoughtfully provided. So thank you, random stranger. You know who you are. If you would like to follow me on Twitter and don't already, I am at Mendacities.
Of course, your question touches on one of the basic biological inputs. It's associated with hopes and fears for the future of the species. I also detect some unspoken
I couldn't have done that
our benefactors.
again if I tried.
Decision for mankind. We'll have to deactivate the suppression field and
Yeah.
read again.
Yeah, boss, about that.
Rather than every question you might have. First, let us consider the fact that for the first time,
Do I have to start over?
as a species, immortality. This simple fact has
I know the channel name is George Games Badly, but I didn't think it was going to go this horribly wrong. Okay. Wow, really? Just... random beatings. The beatings will continue until morale improves.
started at the shadows.
Could not do it again if I tried.
But inseparable from instinct is its dark twin, superstition. Instinct is inextricably bound to unreasoning impulses, and today we clearly see its true nature.
Word of the wise.
Instinct has just
Keep it to
become
yourself.
aware of its irrelevance. And like a cornered beast, it will not go down without
And so here's another one of the so-called Breen casts. When I originally played this for the first time, I must have spent half an hour, hanging around, listening to all the propaganda broadcasts. It's an interesting way to provide backstory, but it is not without its faults.
Tooth and nail, beginning with the basis of human urgency.
Well, I am here in the plaza,
We should thank
and
our
there is the Citadel.
giving us respite from this overpowering force. They have thrown a switch and exercised
Terminal
our demons
Hotel.
in a single stroke. They have given us the strength we never could have summoned to overcome this compulsion. They have given us purpose. They have turned our eyes toward the stars.
Let's pause here for a moment. What genre is Half-Life 2, Internet? Wikipedia says it's a first-person shooter. And I'm, maybe, okay. You can rule out the things it's not. It's not a role-playing game. You have no real statistics or abilities. It's not any kind of simulation, unless it's, Dystopian Simulator 2004, Dystopia Simulator 2004. But it seems to generally be considered a first-person shooter, and it certainly bears a lot of the hallmarks of that. Particularly noticeable is how thoroughly and consistently the game railroads you. You have, at any given point, exactly one way you can go. There are little side areas you can explore sometimes, but there's really no there are very few, if any, choices that you are presented with, and I would argue in some ways Half-Life 2 isn't a first-person shooter, because there really aren't objectives per se, except in the grand, the larger scale. Or it is perhaps a anti-first-person shooter, but I would argue that it is actually, you are actually playing a first-person movie. There's something called a visual novel, which is sort of a branch of interactive fiction, although they're sometimes referred to as like linear novels. And it's a video game that you play, but there's no, it's a very linear thing, just like a novel. You have no choices. You just sort of see what happens next. And I think in a lot of ways Half-Life 2 is very similar, in that you are just, well, there are things in the game, if we want to call it a game, that don't make a lot of logical sense outside the context of a movie. And I sort of feel like Valve did that on purpose. When you are on the train at the very beginning of the game, they're showing you the production credits. Games do that now. They didn't back then. This was the first, as far as I know. It was certainly uncommon. And I think they were aware of the kind of cinematography of it. And there's very little randomness in this game. It relies really heavily on scripted elements that are triggered by the player. And so yeah, that's my first little thought here. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, and it's possibly one of the reasons I like it. I'm not really a gamer. I don't consider myself a gamer. I am a person who plays video games occasionally. In much the same way I'm a person who rides a bicycle, but I don't consider myself a cyclist. It's not part of my identity. And so I usually really don't like first-person shooters. And Half-Life 2 is one of the exceptions. And I think that might be because it's not really a first-person shooter. Anyway.
Let me assure you that the suppressing field will be shut off on the day that we have mastered ourselves. The day we can prove
The suppression field.
that day of transformation.
Liberating the remnants of humanity from their baser instincts. Keep moving. Yeah. Another scripted event. Then you come here and you turn left and you look, and it's I think that they call it a strider. You're meant to see it. And I guess if you missed the Vortigaunt in the train station, that is probably your first real hint about just how alien things have gotten. Because Everything else sort of seems, you know, dystopian, but not too fantastic. And it is probably also foreshadowing, although for the life of me, I can't remember where else you would see a Strider. But this Half-Life 2 is heavy on foreshadowing, which is, again, much more of a cinematic thing than a video game thing. Yeah, I probably don't want to go that way.
This is how it always starts. First the building, then the whole block. They have no reason to come to our place. Don't worry, they'll find one.
Such a cheerful world we inhabit. And supposedly, this is a really exciting part of the game. Because this little playground is supposed to be a showcase for the physics in the source engine. You know, you can push the swing and it behaves appropriately. And, you know, there's this teeter-totter and you can... or seesaw? Teeter-totter? I don't know. Don't yell at me. But you can, if you're more competent than I, put a cinder block on there. And yes, look, physics, and also foreshadowing. And you can spin the merry-go-round. And have your picture taken by this accursed flying thingy. So, yeah. Yeah, they're not going to let you go that way. And there's nothing up here. Can't go through there. Oh, yeah. This reminds me here. Why is there a doll? I mean, okay, it's playground, but why is there a doll? Why is there a playground, for that matter? When I'm not playing video games badly, one of the things I do is that I'm a writer. And when you are writing anything, be it a short story or a novel, or a documentary, even a piece of nonfiction, or if you're writing a movie, there are kind of two really fundamental approaches. There's what's termed plotters, people who plot, and pantsers, people who fly by the seat of their pants and just make it up as they go along. The problem, one of the problems with making it up as you go along is that you often write yourself into corners and create problems for yourself that you later have to explain away somehow. And Valve did that several times in Half-Life 2. And this playground kind of, it brings to mind one of the problems. There are no kids. Now, there's no technical reason for there not to be children. But I strongly suspect Valve simply didn't want to put children into a really terrible dystopian video game. Which, okay, you know, makes sense. People get really unreasonable about depictions of child neglect and endangerment and so on. And and rightly so. But so it's, you know, it's you didn't usually see kids in, you know, there are no children in Morrowind, for example, which is roughly contemporary with Half-Life 2. It wasn't for technical reasons. It was just they decided not to put kids in so that you couldn't do bad things to them. The problem is that Valve later kind of retconned the whole lack of kids away by saying that Half-Life 2 takes place about 20 years after Half-Life 1. And the whole deal with the reproductive suppression fields, nobody's had the instinct to procreate. It's possible nobody's had the ability to procreate in 20 years, so there have been no children for approximately 19 years. Hence, the world literally only has grown-ups. Which, you know, okay, that's a creative way to get around why there are no kids in your world. But then why are there children's toys? When there haven't been children for over a decade. But the other problem is they were so clever retconning this 20-year gap. But you show up on the train in City 17, and neither Barney nor Dr. Kleiner are, like, super surprised to see you. They say they expected more warning, but nobody's like, my goodness, you haven't changed a bit. And everyone recognizes you immediately. They're unsurprised, you know, at how the fact that you've appeared and how you appear. And it's, if you look at the models in the original Half-Life, not Half-Life Source, but just Half-Life, from the old, what was it called, the Gold engine or something, and then compare it to the models in Half-Life 2, Barney doesn't look really any older. Barney should be at least 40 in Half-Life 2. He doesn't look 40 to me. I mean, I'm 40 something, and he looks a lot younger than I do. And he's been living in a, you know, a terrible dystopian world. You know, so it's one of those things. They were clever, but they probably created as many kind of logical problems as they tried to solve. And then for all you Alex and Gordon shippers, if there has been a 20-year gap, you never see Alex in Half-Life 1. How old is Alex now? And then keep in mind that Dr. Freeman is got to be pushing 50. So unless you really like the May-December romance trope, might have to reconsider that ship a little bit. And here we are loading again. How weak is my computer internet? It doesn't even have a CPU. It has a APU. one of AMD's really weak advanced processing units or something from many years ago. Really nobody bicycles in this world. Also, the handlebars are on backwards, but, you know. The handlebars are on backwards, and the crank is on the wrong side. Novel. Okay, well. And then you go up here, and this is another example of the game railroading you. You're supposed to go forward, go in there, talk to those people, and you have to. The beatings will continue. One of the few clocks in the game. I don't know if it actually works, though. And I'm not going to sit here and wait for it to move, because I suspect it doesn't. But what lovely living conditions they have here, isn't it? You got a mattress on the floor.
Oh, I thought you were a cop.
And boarded up doorways.
Look at him down there.
I told you they'd be coming for us next.
Just this once, I hope you're wrong.
One of the things that we were promised before Half-Life 2 came out was destructible environments. And it's sort of true. Not quite as true as some people had wanted, but I do remember that you can do, for example, fun things like... Remember what the commands are, what the controls are. You can do fun things like that. Yep, that's my blow struck for freedom and whatnot. Also a fun demonstration of the physics engine. Yeah, so there's only one way to go. Ooh, railroading. Yeah, I'll keep moving.
I can't take it anymore.
Everything's gonna be okay.
What are we going to do?
I'll think of something.
When is it all going to end? Please.
It's all right.
Wow. That bathroom. That toilet. Apparently there is electricity. There's a light in the bathroom. I don't know if it works. There's no switch for it. Not sure how that works. But hey. I like the refrigerator on its side. It adds a certain amount of class. And then
Attention, residents. Miscounts
here we go, and
in your block.
yep, gotta go up.
Cooperation with your civil protection team. Permit full ration reward.
Can't go that way.
Head for the roof. There's no time to lose.
Head for the roof. I.e. just keep running whatever direction you can.
Get in here, quick! Keep moving, head for the roof!
Head for the roof, you say? Alright, alright. You don't have to tell me twice. Oh, that was unexpectedly quick. Whoa! Being shot at. So I guess I will take the obvious ramp. Going onto the roof where there's nothing, nowhere to go. How convenient. More Popo arriving. And being shot at. And more security services are arriving. End of the road here. Come on. I believe at this point you were technically immortal, even though you can get shot and have blood splatter gruesomely all over the scenery. But, yeah. And as I recall, this is where things get interesting. Quality stairs, but mostly that just keeps you from retreating. And now... Oh. Oh. Hi.
No, you don't.
Dr. Freeman, I presume. You better hurry. The Combine can be slow to wake, but once they're up, you don't want to get in their way. Dr. Kleiner said you'd be coming this way. I don't think it occurred to him that you might not have a map.
So let's see, that's 1, 2, 3,
This way, Gordon.
4, 5, 6. You have just been rescued by a woman who single-handedly and
I'm Alex Vance.
without a
My father
weapon
worked with you back in Black Mesa.
killed 6 people.
I'm sure you don't remember me, though. Man, a few words, aren't you?
Yes, yes I am.
Remember him from Black Mesa? Your old administrator. Don't get my dad started on Dr. Breen. Through here.
I genuinely have no idea why she walks backwards there, but it's novel, I'll give it that.
Funny, you showing up on this day in particular. We've been helping people escape the city on foot. It's a dangerous route to my father's lab, through the old canals. Today, we're finally on the verge of having a better way.
Novel, a little bit of propaganda there. There's of course no reason whatsoever that she couldn't have just gone down the stairs there. But Valve
Here,
wanted to show
let me
off
buy you a
the
drink.
animation engine.
Oh, and by the way, nice to finally meet you.
And the first of many lambdas you will find painted on walls and scenery.
Blast that little... Where did she get to? Lamar! Come out of there!
Uh-oh, everything all right, Dr. Kleiner?
Oh, hello, Alex. Well, almost all right. Lamar has gotten out of her crate again. If I didn't know better, I'd suspect Barney of trapping and... My goodness. Gordon Freeman. It really is you, isn't it?
I found him wandering around outside. Bit of a troublemaker, isn't he?
We owe a great deal to Dr. Freeman, even if trouble does tend to follow in his wake. I must say, Gordon, you come at a very opportune time. Alex has just installed the final piece for our resurrected teleport.
I can't take any credit for the breakthrough, Doctor.
Nonsense. Your talents surpass your loveliness.
Let's just see if this thing works, okay?
Well, is he here? There you are. Man, Gordon, you stirred up the hive. We can't keep him here long, Doc. It'll jeopardize everything we've worked for.
Don't worry, he's coming with me.
That's right, Barney. This is a red letter day. We'll inaugurate the new teleport with a double transmission.
You mean it's working? For real this time? Because I still have nightmares about that cat.
No, there's nothing to be nervous about.
What cat?
We've made major strides since then. Major strides.
What cat?
Doc, since he's not taking the streets, you might as well get him out of his civvies.
What? Oh dear, you're right. I almost forgot. Barney, I'll
And,
give you the honor.
The body language and
I've got to
everything
get back
is
on my shift, but okay.
very impressive by 2004 standards. Still pretty impressive now, to be quite honest.
Here we go. Ah! Damn it, get it off me!
Lamar, there you
I
are.
thought you got rid of that pest.
Certainly not. Never fear, Gordon. She's de-beaked and completely harmless. The worst she might do is attempt to couple with your head. Fruitlessly.
Get that thing away from me!
Here, my pet. Hop up. No, not up there. No, no. Careful, Lamar. Those are quite fragile. Oh, fie. It'll be another week before I can coax her out of there.
Yeah, longer if we're lucky.
Barney, you're not an animal person.
And that little exchange
Slip into your suit now.
serves two purposes. One, it's a Headley Lamar joke, which a lot of people won't get.
Gordon, if you please, I'm eager to see if your old suit still fits.
And the other is to show that you can, well, some things anyway, can get into the air ducts,
Let's get a move on.
which is, you know, mild foreshadowing. Now I'm all suited up. I have health, and I am mortal. So, yay.
Well, Gordon, I see your HEV suit still fits you like a glove. At least the glove parts do. I've made a few modifications, but I'll just acquaint you with the essentials. Now, let's see.
Fun question.
The
Where's the
Mark
printer
V
getting its paper
hazardous
from?
environment suit has
Don't
been
think about that too hard.
redesigned for comfort and utility. Oh dear.
Doc, we don't have time for this. At least get that suit juiced up, Gordon.
Good idea. There's a charger on the wall. I've modified your suit to draw power from Combine energy outlets, which are plentiful wherever they patrol.
Meanwhile, let's get this show on the road.
These things.
Well, come on. Dr. Cleaner's waiting.
Hey, that's me, right? Gordon Freeman.
You coming?
And it's hard to tell because of the resolution, but I swear that's a tube radio schematic. Anyway.
This way, Gordon.
Gordon, why don't you position yourself near the panel over there and wait for my word?
Isaac, are you there?
Yes, Eli. Bit of a holdup on this end. You'll never guess who found his way into our lab this morning.
That's not who I think it is.
Indeed it is, and it's our intention to send him packing straight away in the company of your lovely daughter.
Are you ready for us, Dad?
We're all set on this end.
Then let's do it.
Let's see. The massless field flux should self-limit, and I've clamped the manifold parameters to C base and LT orbifold Hilbert inclusive. Conditions could hardly be more ideal.
That's what you said last time.
Hey, yeah, about that cat.
Initializing in 3, 2, 1. No, fiddlesticks. What now?
Doctor, the plug.
Dear me, you're right. Gordon, would you mind plugging us in?
It's right there, Gordon.
And if you haven't been throwing televisions around, this is kind of your first hint that you can
You gonna let Gordon throw the switch?
pick up and interact with stuff. Well, that and I guess
Go right ahead.
the pop cam. And then this is
Very good. Final sequence.
your real clue that you can interact
Now.
with
I can't look.
levers and things.
Okay. Oh, it's
Well, did it work?
See for yourself.
Hey, Doc.
Thank goodness. My relief is almost palpable.
Fantastic work, Izzy.
Well, I can't take all the credit. Dr. Freeman proved an able assistant.
Let's go
Oh.
ahead and bring Gordon through now.
Right you
Flatterer.
are. Speak to you again in a few moments.
Good job, Gordon. Throwing that switch and all. I can see your MIT education really pays for itself.
All right, Barney. Your turn.
Obviously a Harvard man.
Gordon, as soon as you're in position, we'll send you to Eli's.
And not a moment too soon.
Excellent. Initializing in 3, 2, 1. Barney, if you'd be so kind.
Good luck out there, Gordon.
Yes, indeed. We're ready to project you, Gordon. Bon voyage, and best of luck in your future endeavors. Final sequence. The hell? What is it?
It's your head, the freaking head humper.
Lamar, heavy, no! Is Lamar with him?
My goodness, was that foreshadowing?
What's going on, Judith?
I'm not sure. It seems to be some kind of interference.
Gordon, stay put. We'll get you out of there.
Something's drawing him away.
What's the meaning of this? Who are you? How did you get in here?
Oh.
Don't worry, Gordon.
There he is! Oh, we're losing it again.
The man I saw. I'm all but certain it was Gordon Freeman.
Yoinks.
Where is he?
Behind you. Shut it down. Shut it down.
You must get out of here! Run!
Get down out of sight. I'll come find you.
Okay. So now, I guess, you gotta run and start running and hiding. But that little bit does at least remind me of something I'd forgotten, which is why does the Combine develop a sudden hatred for you and do everything in their power to kill you? Apparently the answer is because you just randomly apparate in Dr. Breen's office. And being a evil megalomaniac, he assumes that the only reason you could possibly be there is to kill him, and takes it personally. Or so I gather. But that at least answers that question. That's been bugging me for a while. Why the Combine suddenly get a hit on for you when they pretty much just leave you alone in the very early parts of the train station and everything.
Hey, Gordon! The Citadel's on full alert. I've never seen it lit up like that. Get out of City 17 as fast as you can, Gordon. Take the old canals, right? They'll get you to Eli's lab. It's a dangerous route, but there's a whole network of refugees, and they'll help you if they can. I'd come with you, but I gotta look after Dr. Kleiner. Oh, and before I forget, I think you dropped this back in Black Mesa. Good luck out there, buddy. You're gonna need it.
And it's the iconic crowbar. And after the retcon, Valve would like you to believe that Barney's been hanging on to this little souvenir for 20 years. Nope. Sorry. There's the Citadel. And you can sort of zoom in and it's dispensing whatever. You'll notice that nothing is coming your way. And there's a reason for this. And that is that Citadel doesn't actually exist. Half-Life 2 has some very large maps and what seems to be some very great draw distances, but the reality is that a lot of the very distant stuff, more than about 100 yards away, is actually just static rendered backgrounds. But don't take my word for it. This is going to sound incredibly nerdy, but I once spent a full day making stereo anaglyphs in Half-Life 2. You stand in one spot and you take a screenshot, and then you strafe, to one side or the other, and take a second screenshot, and that should give you a hyperstereogram, which you put into the right software, and then if you've got like red and blue stereo glasses, you can then see the world in 3D. And it would be really, really cool, but if you do it on a larger map, you will immediately discover that it doesn't work, because everything more than about a block away, or what would be kind of normal draw distance for a video game, everything beyond a certain point is at infinity. It's static background, and it doesn't actually change perspective at all. So yeah. That's just me being a nerd. I'll try to keep the random asides to a minimum, but really, who am I kidding? Stop that. guess it's like what they say, when all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. I'm guessing you have to go this way, yeah. This is a very cinematic little thing here. Through all the clouds and the buildings and everything, there's a little beam of sunlight, and it's illuminating that door right there and those boxes. Or that box, that crate, which is the direction you have to go. Oops, gotta run. Which makes things easy, I guess, but it, really can't. Again, there's only one way to go. Take cover behind this pillar. Ooh, yeah, well. But so, oh, stop that. And let me tell you, the flashlight was a huge, huge novelty when this came out. I don't think anyone had done it, had a flashlight in a first-person shooter style game before. So that was kind of cool. And now, we are in Root Canal. And this is the point where I am going to end this. Not because I don't want to play Root Canal, but as I remember, it is a very long level, and this video file is going to be huge enough and hard enough to deal with as it is. But also because one of the reasons I don't play a lot of these first-person video games is they tend to make me violently motion sick. And I'm feeling a little queasy right now, to be honest. Despite having eaten beforehand and being, you know, as rested as I ever am, which means I got like 3 hours of sleep last night. But so I am gonna go heal and I'm gonna heal and then save. And we will resume from here at some point in the near future. And then I will hopefully be able to make it through Root Canal without revisiting breakfast. Yeah, so have yourself a good day, Internet, and watch out for head crabs.